Hello everybody. One of the most contested elements of the classic series has been the existence of the Super Emeralds and Hyperforms. Originally thought to just be a bonus for people playing Sonic 3 and Knuckles as a complete game, the Super Emeralds and the ability to enter into a Hyperform were both never seen again. But when Sonic Mania came out, we once again go to visit the Hidden Palace Zone and see the Emeralds. Now, completely out of energy, turned to stone-like statues and cracked. So, are they and the Hyperforms canon or not? And if so, how or when did they lose their energy? Welcome back to Loops and Lore. I'm Ben, and today we are going to be discussing 7 incredibly special emeralds, and I will attempt to prove to you why they are just as canon as the original 7 and how they got into this broken state. And before we get started, I need to very briefly explain what I mean when I say canon. Canon in this case, when we reference the Sonic universe, is referring to the current main narrative and timeline. There have been a lot of things that have disturbed the reality that is Sonic's world. Many events and characters have come and gone in the games that have definitely changed the events that we are currently experiencing, things that have happened in the past of Sonic's world and things that will happen in the future. So in this case, again, canon is referring to the main narrative. Now, we know, of course, that Super Sonic is canon, and so it's not hard to believe that Hypersonic is also canon, making the existence of the Super Emeralds possible by default. However, we also know that Amy is not originally part of this adventure, an adventure that Tails doesn't actually go on by himself, and only Sonic goes to Doomsday Zone without you hacking into the game. Knuckles also doesn't need to enter into a Hyperform and can't due to a lack of rings in that final battle with Mecha Sonic, making it irrelevant whether he has one or not. But it is generally accepted that only Hypersonic is considered to be canon, and several things that SEGA has said have backed this up. At least until we look at Trip in Sonic Superstars, who technically has a super form, even though she's not a male hedgehog. But that's for other reasons and for another time. So, with that out of the way, let's get back into it. Originally, Sonic 3 and Sonic & Knuckles were intended to be one game that had to be split in two due to time-sensitive contract agreements that SEGA had made. And so, 3 had to be released first, followed not long after by Sonic & Knuckles, though it has later been clarified that the two are considered one adventure and are meant to be experienced as such. In order to experience the whole game as intended, back before it was re-released, a player would have to use the now famous lock-on technology of the Sonic & Knuckles cartridge to join both games together and create that complete adventure. Of course, this meant, especially for experienced Sonic 3 players, that you could easily get the Chaos Emeralds during the first half of the game and blast through the second half with almost nothing to stop you. As much as this is a fun way to play through the game, this is more of a New Game Plus experience, and would take away from the game if you were able to do this on your first playthrough. This means SEGA needed a way to take away the Chaos Emeralds and make you re-earn them in a new set of even more difficult special stages while playing into the mystery and world building of the game. After Sonic and Tails follow Knuckles to a secret shortcut to Hidden Palace, we watch as the 7 Chaos Emeralds fly off into the sky, only to send down 7 blasts of energy that would create the uncharged Super Emeralds in their place. You must now earn each Super Emerald before being able to use a super form again, although now replaced by a Hyper one. From a lore perspective, this makes sense, as the first time the Emeralds are gathered together in Sonic 1, they scatter. Granted, that was only 6 of the 7 Chaos Emeralds, but my point still stands. And later, we would see a number of times when the emeralds would scatter after being used, particularly after the events of Sonic Adventure. In fact, Sonic Frontiers is a perfect example of this because after almost every single major boss encounter, the emeralds immediately fly away as Sonic exits his super form. Now, why they don't immediately do so after the events of Sonic 2, or when Knuckles knocks Sonic out of his super form, is a separate conversation, but the important note here is that a loss of the super form is caused by a loss of the Chaos Emeralds, and then flying off also fits with the lore of this world. Especially when we consider this is their first time being rejoined to the Master Emerald, potentially since the events surrounding Tikal. So again, the creation of the Super Emeralds here does fit this world, and there is no reason they can't be a canon magical gem. Normally, the emeralds grant miraculous power, but what we see here isn't much different. The Super Emeralds, rather than being held, stay in Hidden Palace, surrounding the Master Emerald, and glow once their special stage is completed, giving their earner access to his or her hyper form. It's unclear if the Super Emeralds provide the same mysterious story-driving power that the Chaos Emeralds do, but they appear to give off a more raw energy power than the other stones, granting a new ability to Sonic, packing more punch to each of Knuckles' punches, and granting a special form for Tails that he can share with some brave Flickies. And let's not forget Amy, who now gets to volley out hammers like they're going out of style. Normally, the emeralds grant miraculous power, but what we see here isn't that much different. The Super Emeralds, rather than being held, stay in Hidden Palace Zone, surrounding the Master Emerald, and glow once their special stage is completed. Mastering all 7, of course, gives the earner access to a hyper form, but again, that person doesn't need to be in possession of the 7 stones to get access to that power, only having earned it. After defeating Robotnik, recovering the Master Emerald, and getting picked up by Tails, Sonic and his twin-tailed friend drop the Master Emerald back off with Knuckles on Angel Island and fly off. After the credits roll, Sonic jumps off the tornado and once again enters into his hyper form. If playing Sonic and Knuckles only, a similar event takes place, except Sonic will instead be in his super form. In the Sonic and Knuckles version, there is nothing to question. Sonic collects all 7 emeralds, leading to the good ending of the game, which we then don't see scatter afterwards, and so he can still go super, just like the end of Sonic 2. In Sonic 3 and Knuckles, the Chaos Emeralds create the energy to make the Super Emeralds and fly off, just like in Sonic 1, which is why we can no longer go super. Still, when we go hyper at the end of the game, we aren't holding any emeralds, as the super ones are still in Hidden Palace Zone, and we are no longer near the island for that matter either. Come to think of it, the game's final battle is held up in space, potentially miles and miles away from the island, suggesting that Sonic's connection to these emeralds is not limited by distance, and in theory, he should now be able to go hyper whenever he wants. In Sonic Mania, the Super Emeralds are seen for the first time since 1994. And here, they aren't just grayed out like they were before we charged them up, or like the Chaos Emeralds appear whenever they are drained of their positive energy, like in Sonic Adventure or Sonic Unleashed. Instead, these emeralds are cracked and look more like solid stone than a precious gem, having lost any magical luster and looking more like a statue carved in the image of an emerald than like an object that once held incredible power. Now, it's important to note that this whole game is being affected by the Phantom Ruby, so elements could simply be hand-waved as a result of that bizarre gem's effects on the world, but this one is really interesting. The gems aren't just discharged but cracked, letting the player know that they are there more as set dressing than anything else, and probably to stop players from going crazy trying to unlock a non-existent hyper form. But, okay, let's just accept that the Super Emeralds are out of commission. But why are they out of commission? The Chaos Emeralds still work. The Phantom Ruby didn't affect them, or the Master Emerald, as there is still an attempt to steal that. So, why are the Super Emeralds broken? Well, it turns out the answer has been in front of us this whole time. Knuckles' story in Sonic and Knuckles takes place after Sonic's, and while he does go to the Hidden Palace Zone, he skips most of the stage, moving right to a teleporter that sends him to Sky Sanctuary. Here, we see Angel Island teetering in the sky, but we don't yet know why this is happening until we finish the first half of our fight with Mecha Mark II, and he skids off to a stolen and glowing Master Emerald. After recharging all 7 Super Emeralds, the Master Emerald itself will begin to pulse with energy, as if coming back to life for the first time. And this shared resonance between the 8 special stones is what gives you access to the Hyperform. When Metal Sonic jumps onto the revealed Master Emerald, it is still glowing with the resonance it shares with the Super Emeralds, and it's that shared energy that Mecha begins to siphon for himself. Now, Mecha has not earned the power though. He is taking it by force and for an evil purpose. As we said earlier, using the emeralds in this way tends to drain them of their energy. So it only makes sense that this would have been the moment that the Super Emeralds are drained. But why did they crack and turn to stone? Remember that the Master Emerald is also able to neutralize the Chaos Emeralds, and could probably do the same to the Super Emeralds as well. Mecha is also draining it multiple times, at least twice if you're a speedrunner, but other players will see this happen even more. We also don't have a creature attempting to steal the Emerald's power like Chaos does, but a non-organic robot instead. Any of these, or perhaps all combined, could easily explain the reason we see these gems in this condition and why we have never seen them since. This would also explain why Sonic knew to go to Knuckles' rescue, as when the emeralds were drained, he would have lost the ability to enter into his hyper form and may have sensed that something was wrong. Granted, that doesn't give him much time to hop into the tornado and get airborne, depending on how long the battle goes on for, but it's something. While Knuckles is shown being in a hyper form due to him holding the Master Emerald after Mecha Mark II's defeat, this is really more of a "you are worthy" moment from the Master Emerald to Knuckles, more so than him actually using a hyper form, or at least that's what we would assume following the rules of the current main narrative. After all, his super and hyper forms outside of this moment are not technically considered to be canon, so he would not be able to use them at any point in the adventure. Meaning that if Egg Robo or Mecha Sonic had disturbed the Master Emerald earlier in this adventure, this could have tipped Sonic off that something was wrong, giving him more time to fly over and see the island swaying in the wind. The island's unsettling level of movement would probably be something that we would see affecting certain stages with water or lava, also making the game nearly unplayable as everything would be getting drastically shifted back and forth. However, the island is still remaining airborne, and in the bad ending only sinks down after Sonic returns Knuckles to the island. We could then argue that perhaps the residual energy of the Master Emerald was still keeping it afloat, but not enough to protect it from the strong winds, which may have only just started at this time. And we do hear the sound of gusting winds just before the tornado rises up from the bottom of the screen after Mecha's defeat and Knuckles' quick rescue. But regardless of the exact time frame, we could still make the argument that it's Mecha's draining of the Master Emerald that could have left the emeralds drained and cracked, giving a definitive reason as to why Hypersonic has never been seen since. It's not because the ability didn't exist, it just can't be accessed anymore, and for reasons that perfectly fit with the lore and story of this world. So, does that mean that these Super Emeralds and Hyper Forms will never return? In Sonic Adventure and Adventure 2, Knuckles is tasked with reforming the Master Emerald, and in Sonic Battle, Eggman breaks some Chaos Emeralds into shards to power his Phi series of robots. Gathering these shards allow the emeralds to be reformed, and we have previously seen that recharging a drained emerald is also possible. So, does this mean that, in theory, we could just go into Hidden Palace and restore those stones as well? There is a lot of lore significance in the classic era involving the Chaos Emeralds that we will explore deeper in a separate conversation. What's important to keep in mind for now is that the emeralds have been separated for quite some time, potentially at least 50 years, as only one of them is spoken about in Shadow's backstory, and we have no known stories that occur between then and the classic era, as the events with the Gizoid and Trip's ancestors occur before Shadow's story even begins, or at least that's the assumption. The emeralds are then partially rejoined together in Sonic 1 and fully rejoined in Sonic 2, then returned at last to the Master Emerald in Sonic and Knuckles, for the first time potentially since the events surrounding Tikal and Chaos, both of whom are still sealed inside the Master Emerald during this game. The Chao have also not returned to the world yet, at least as far as we know. The Master Emerald has yet to be damaged, and the emeralds have yet to be drained. We also have the looming danger of the Death Egg still crashed into the island, and although Knuckles hasn't realized it yet, Robotnik is planning on stealing the Master Emerald from him, not protecting it from Sonic, which the prophesying image in Hidden Palace Zone could have been used by Eggman to fool Knuckles into believing that he was telling the truth and that Sonic was the enemy. While our main echidna may have been fooled, the spirit of the one that was inside the emerald may have sensed both the impending danger and how Sonic may have been able to stop it. So the creation of these Super Emeralds may have actually had quite a bit to do with Tikal's meddling. We don't know that for sure, but if that's the case, well, it could affect whether or not those same events could ever be repeated because so much has changed. This is to say that there's a lot of unique factors at play here that could have aided in why and how the Super Emeralds were created in that specific moment, and, well, perhaps that time has passed. There's also the issue of power balancing. Having a set of stones with more power than the Chaos Emeralds limits their importance in the story, unless, of course, something was to happen that would change that. Sonic Frontiers, as an example, gives Sonic a form higher than Supersonic that was required to defeat the End, and it's possible that another great threat might require an even greater amount of power, or enough power to charge up more than 3 hedgehogs. It may not be likely, but it's also not impossible. And with that, I'm Ben. This has been Loops and Lore, and thanks for watching.